Governor, thank you so much for joining me. You just heard those teenage survivors. How do you explain to these young people that your party is not doing anything about guns?
Well, listen, first of all, these kids are young people are amazing, and my hope is with them. They're absolutely right when they say that politicians have not been responding to any of this. You take a look at the Congress, and I think the Congress is totally dysfunctional. Dan, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, they can't fix immigration. They have been unable to pass a tax bill with pay-for. So as a result of that, we've seen the debt go up. They just can't seem to get anything done, except the fact that they all came together and agreed to take money out of our kids' piggy banks, because now they just go ahead and blow a hole in the deficit. So it's dysfunctional. And do I think they can do anything on guns? I hope they prove me wrong, and they can, because I have no confidence in them. Where we have to affect this, I believe, is at the local level and the state house, because you can have greater access to politicians who serve in a state legislature, in a county commissioner, in a city council. That's where you need to put the pressure and call these people out. I've formed a committee out here, a group of people, and they were looking at everything, full background checks, including casual sales. Whether we can we're going to ask them to up the look at in terms of whether people have emotional problems, ought to be able to go out and buy guns. We should look at bump stocks that make weapons fully automatic. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning. He's a big gun collector. I said, if all of a sudden you couldn't buy an AR-15, what would you lose? Would you feel as though your Second Amendment rights would be eroded because you couldn't buy a god-darn AR-15? These are the things that have to be looked at, and action has to happen before. And look, you're never going to fix all of this, but common sense gun laws make sense. And I'm hopeful that this group that I've assembled on both sides of the issue are going to come together with recommendations. The Speaker of our House, Cliff Rosenberger, said he's anxious to see what can be produced. We'll see. And if they don't produce anything, I'll put my own stuff out.
Okay, so you're saying that this should be a battle waged on the state and local level. But when it comes to Congress, you were a member of Congress. Do you think that it is just dysfunction and ineptitude, or do you think it's because they're actually scared of the political consequences from important groups like the NRA?
Look, some people just feel strongly about this, and if you're I support the Second Amendment. I don't know anybody that really doesn't, but are there limits to it? And the fact is, with somebody
and you're
who's
saying the answer is yes.
Second Amendment, well, here's what I'm trying to say. Yes, Dana. Here's the answer is: if you're a strong Second Amendment person, you need to slow down and take a look at reasonable things that can be done to answer these young people. And frankly, my hope is in the next generation. Think about how bad it is in Congress. They can't decide anything. They can't decide that a kid that was brought here at 5 years of age, who's been here for 30 years, ought to be able to stay. They can't agree to anything down there. Wake up. Wake up.
Governor,
our country's being hurt because of this.
Governor, you're talking a lot about Congress. There obviously is a man sitting at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the president, and, sort of historically, presidents do take on leadership roles on issues like this. President Trump tweeted overnight that it's very sad that the FBI missed signals about the Florida shooter because they were spending too much time trying to prove collusion with Russia. What's your reaction to that?
I don't agree with that. I think it's an absurd statement, okay? Absurd. The fact of the matter is the FBI apparently made a terrible mistake, and people should be held accountable. But we need leadership out of the executive. This is a great opportunity for common sense steps that can be taken. Just in the area of background checks, there should be no ability to do a casual sale without somebody having to find out who they're selling the gun to and what is involved. The president should be for that. When it comes to the issue of mental illness, we need to take a look across the country that if somebody's mentally ill, it needs to be reported. And if somebody becomes emotionally distraught, it must be immediately examined by local law enforcement or the FBI. Of course, the president can lead on this and should lead on this. And Mr. President, I ask you to do this. You don't have to boil the ocean, but take some steps now. This is an opportunity, and I believe those who are Second Amendment advocates really realize that common sense, real reforms can happen in this country to answer the cries and the anguish of people all across this country who have lost loved ones.
Governor, I want you to listen to what former Republican Congressman from Florida, David Jolly, said to CNN this week.
If this is the issue that defines your ideology as a voter, there are two things I would suggest tonight. First, flip the House. Flip the House. Republicans are not going to do a single thing after this shooting we saw today.
Governor, is that just a lesson that the dysfunctional congressmen that you talk about need to learn? Do they just need to lose their majority?
You know, Dana, in life, when you have a set of values which are loving our children or somebody else's children, sometimes you have to put yourself at risk. You put yourself at risk that you may not get reelected. But if you can move things forward in the name of peace in our country and you lose an election, we'll give you a badge and a crown. And you know what? There's not the end of the world because you lose an election. So everybody's got to look inside of themselves and think about their children and their grandchildren. And look, I'm not calling for some outright ban. I'm talking about small steps that can be taken that can be effective. And the Congress ought to do it. I don't have any confidence in them. I don't think most Americans do. Nobody's supporting them anymore on both sides. They're both broken. And we need to come together as a country because it is eroding us as a country. I was in the Congress. I never saw anything like what's happening down there. I was talking to our Attorney General the other day, who was a United States Senator. I said, they're dysfunctional. He just shook his head. He said, I've never seen anything like it.
Governor,
do something.
Thank you so much for your voice this morning. I appreciate it. Thank you.